Franklin plants a tree by Paulette Bourgeois. Franklin could climb trees and swing from branches. He liked to play with his friends at the tree house and go for walks with his family in the woods. So Franklin was excited when he learned that Mr. Heron was giving away trees for Earth Day. He could hardly wait to have his own tree in his own backyard. On Earth Day, Franklin got up early and dug a huge hole right outside his bedroom window. He wanted to plant his tree as soon as he got home. Tonight he'd invite his friends over to build a new tree house. Tomorrow he'll look for an old tire and make a swing. Franklin grabbed his wagon and hurried off. He didn't want all the big trees to be taken. In the park, a large crowd was lined up in front of Mr. Heron. Franklin saw lots of boxes, but he didn't see the trees. Maybe they're not here yet, he thought. Then he saw Rabbit leaving. Didn't you get a tree? Franklin asked. I have one, Rabbit replied, tapping his knapsack. Franklin was confused. Rabbit reached into his knapsack and pulled out a tiny tree. That's not a tree, Franklin exclaimed. That's a twig. It's a baby tree, Franklin, exclaimed Beaver. It's called a sapling. Mine's an ash, and Rabbit has an oak. Well, I'm not getting a sapling, Franklin declared. My tree has to be big enough to play in it today. But when Franklin got to the front of the line, Mr. Heron gave him a sapling the same size as the others. Could I have a bigger one? Asked Franklin. This is a sugar maple, replied Mr. Heron. Many years from now, it'll be very big indeed. Franklin nodded sadly. He put the sapling in his wagon and walked slowly home. Franklin sighed as he stared at the huge hole in his backyard. He shoveled earth back in until the hole was small. Then he went to get his sugar maple. But the sapling was not there. Franklin looked all around the garden and up and down the lane. It must have fallen out on the way home, he decided. At lunchtime, Franklin told his parents about losing his tree. But it doesn't matter, he added. It wasn't big enough to play in. Big or little, you promised to care for it, said his father. Franklin slumped down in his chair. All right, he sighed. I'll go look again. Franklin followed the path back to the park. By the pond, he saw Beaver. Her sapling was tied to a big stick marked with notches. It's a growth chart, Beaver explained. In 3 years, my tree will be taller than me. Thought Franklin. He began to look a little harder. In the meadow, Franklin saw a rabbit with a watering can. I planted my sapling where he had lots of fresh air and sunshine, explained Rabbit, and I'm going to water it every day, he added. Franklin thought about his sugar maple. If it didn't get sunshine and fresh air and water, it would never be taller than him. Franklin started to hurry. Near the woods, Franklin saw Bear painting a little fence bright red. Inside it was Bear's sapling. This will protect my pine tree until it's big and strong, Bear explained. I don't want anyone to step on it by mistake. Franklin thought about someone stepping on his sugar maple. If that happened, it would never grow big and strong and be taller than him. Franklin told Bear everything. I've looked all over, Franklin moaned. Now what do I do? Maybe someone found your tree and gave it back to Mr. Herring, Bear suggested. Franklin cheered up and ran off to find Mr. Herring. Back at the park, Franklin saw Mr. Herring packing up boxes. How's your sapling doing in its new home? Mr. Herring asked. I lost my tree, Mr. Herring, Franklin replied. I've looked everywhere, but I can't find it. Mr. Herring reached into a box and lifted out a sapling. Is this it, Franklin? He asked. Someone found it on the path. My tree! Cried Franklin. Thank you, Mr. Herring. I'm going to plant it right away. Mr. Herring smiled. Before Franklin left, Mr. Herring showed him a photograph. This is me when I was your age, he explained. Planted my first tree. Did it grow? Franklin asked. It sure did, Mr. Herring laughed. We're standing under it. Franklin looked way, way up. You planted the treehouse tree? He exclaimed. Then Franklin looked back down at his sapling. He said thoughtfully. Franklin hurried home, his sapling held safely in his arms. He planted it and watered it, and then he checked on it every day. And every day, Franklin was sure that his tree would grow a little taller and a little stronger, just like Franklin.